Jo Ludlam here. Welcome to my new podcast, Connected Compliance. In this series of short conversations, I'm going to be connecting with a number of senior ethics and compliance practitioners in a relaxed and informal environment to discuss a wide range of topics, including the impact of recent events on their professional and personal lives, how they've adapted to COVID-19, the measures taken by their organisations, and what the future may hold for the compliance community. My first connection is Claire Handley. Claire is the Global Ethics and Compliance Officer at JLL, a leading Fortune 500 professional services and investment management firm specialising in real estate. Claire, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me, Jo. My pleasure.
I guess working from home, it's not the same as how we used to do it. I don't know about you, but I used to try and work from home a day or so a week. And it was an entirely different experience. The children were at school, my husband was busy, and whereas now, as you say, everyone is trying to get on the same Wi-Fi system. There's all the domestic stuff that you have to juggle. I think it's a real challenge, actually.
I think one of the things you lose as well is when you go into the office, you you leave the house, you have that travel, for me quite a long commute, and you get to work and there's a different vibe. There are people I think this is one of the things I really feel I've lost, are those sort of water cooler moments where you just bump into somebody in the office, you chat, you understand a bit more about things that other teams are working on, other parts of the business are working on. And you also get that really good vibe of sort of collaboration and working, which is completely lost when you're sitting at home 5 days a week trying to do that same thing. So I think that has been, for me, the biggest challenge, not having that separation between work and home life.
But you're right, there's something slightly odd and something missing that you don't get when you're not physically in the same place. And I agree, those water cooler moments are quite important, especially I imagine as a compliance professional, because that's often where you hear of bits and pieces going on in the business. Do you feel that you're as in touch with the risks of the business as you would usually be?
That's an interesting one, and I guess one of the challenges there is you don't know what you don't know. So here I am sitting in my home, and when I think about it, I do feel very connected because, for example, I'm very connected to the COVID CertC that JLL set up, and I've been working very closely with those members on different compliance risks that have obviously arisen. So I like to think that I am. However, as we're moving out of lockdown and as the business is looking to align itself with the new normal and really meet our clients' needs, I hope that I am connected, but I couldn't say I definitely know that I am, because you don't have that same interaction outside of your our legal and compliance group, for example. And whilst you can try to sort of create those formal connections and make sure that you do try and stay in touch with different groups and functions, you do lose some of that spontaneity and sort of connection in the office that would normally help you keep informed.
You mentioned some of the different risks that COVID-19 has presented. What are they? What is your team really starting to focus on that it wasn't before?
Certainly, as we went into lockdown and now we're coming out, our sort of privacy specialists have been very focused on the whole connection between health and safety, personal data, privacy, and needing to keep people safe in a pandemic, and trying to balance that. So can we do temperature testing globally? Can we do it? And if we do, what do we need to make sure, as far as data protection is concerned, that we're managing those risks? How are we keeping the data that we're collecting secure? Should we be collecting any data? So I think privacy has definitely been one of those areas we've really focused on in a way that we probably hadn't before, because that interconnection with health and safety and with personal life has really been, you know, brought into sharp focus. You know, asking people about their health as they enter a building is something we would have never thought about doing.
I do think this intersectionality of different areas of risk is really coming to the fore in this pandemic. As you say, never before have you really connected health and safety with data protection. You know, I think that there are also some other risks that are, I think, more dominant than perhaps they were previously. And the challenge of you know, identifying those and flexing your compliance program to address them must be really acute. Have you made any changes to your compliance program's focus or emphasis over the past few months?
I think one area that we've been very aware of, which has had to, you know, where the remote working has really had an impact, is our investigation process. You know, so I think that is one area where working remotely can be seen as a really additional risk, because normally to progress an investigation in an effective and fair way, you're having a series of face-to-face meetings. And, you know, in this environment, you can't do that. You have to rely on Zoom calls, Teams meetings, but you're also very reliant on the working from home environment of those people, whether they're people you're interviewing, whether they're the people who've had a concern raised against them. You know, they're sitting at home, and do they always have access to a quiet place where they can be you know, not have interruptions, not have family members walking through as they're trying to talk about what might be a very sensitive topic? And I think that is one area we've been very focused on.
And what about your whistleblowing reporting hotlines and the like? Have you seen any difference in the numbers of reports coming through the lockdown period? No,
and that's interesting. I mean, that was the first thing we started monitoring, just to see whether we saw a large spike in the number or the type of concerns that were being raised. I would say that we probably did see a spike in some of our client accounts where people were working through lockdown, were having to, you know, keep going, go into work, probably feeling, you know, very pressured if the whole country is locked down and you're not an essential worker, you're not in that respect, but you're still having to go and keep business as usual for your client. I think that put a lot of pressure on some of the people. So on a few client accounts, I think, where we have people working on the ground, we did see a bit of an increase, you know, concerns about, do our employees, you know, are they safeguarding our health, you know, do we have proper protection?
And how do you feel about the future of compliance? Are you optimistic, or do you see the pandemic as having presented some challenges that set you back a little bit with your plans?
I actually don't feel that our program has been set back at all. Apart from, I would say, like many businesses, we had a recruitment freeze, and that's quite understandable. So I think it's probably forced us to be more creative about resourcing and aligning different people and collaborating more. But I don't feel it's really slowed us down. I think it's probably put greater emphasis on some areas that we really need to focus on, like getting our e-learning training modules, you know, really as good as we possibly can, revisiting our investigations process to make sure that we have really strong oversight of our process and that things don't get lost in this remote world. So that there's, you know, there's been areas where we've probably reprioritized to make sure that we are able to cope with the challenges of today.
That's really reassuring, because if you think back to where we started and when you and I first met, talking about connected compliance and the challenge of really having the compliance function embedded within the business and seen as an enabler of the strategy rather than an internal police function, it sounds as though in some ways the pandemic has precipitated that progress towards a genuine collaboration between the functions.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It was very positive in that respect. I think it has really helped, and across borders as well. So across geographies, I think there's been far greater collaboration as well, cross-functional collaboration. I think it has helped in both those areas. So it's been very positive. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure as always to chat with you. Thank you very much for giving up your time and your insights.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jo.
Brilliant. Thank you, Claire.
Take care.